Hi, my name is Melissa Driver, and I am the Associate Dean of Curriculum and Innovations, as well as an Associate Professor of Special Education in the Bagwell College of Education at Kennesaw State University. And I'm excited today to be sharing a little bit about how we use mixed reality simulation to teach our candidates, as well as induction and novice teachers across the state of Georgia, high leverage practices. So, as I am sure many of you are familiar with, we have quite a few preparation challenges when it comes to preparing effective new special education teachers. So we know that our candidates need the opportunity to practice in structured, scaffolded, and supervised experiences, that we want that practice to be realistic and authentic. I'm sure many of you can think back to your own preparation when you might have been asked to role play, a second grade student or maybe a ninth grade student, and just how realistic that role play probably was. We have the need for really good feedback so that we can observe our teachers learning their craft and give them meaningful feedback that they can then take and implement and then actually show progress as quickly as possible, right? Moving away from that, you might get feedback, then or you might teach a lesson, get to debrief, get your feedback. You might implement it in the next lesson, and there's not always the strongest closing of that feedback loop. And of course, time. Time is always a challenge. It is with all teacher preparation, and this is especially true with special education teachers who just have so much to learn and master as they move into their new role. These challenges led us to become quite interested in an emerging technology at the time, so about a decade ago, when mixed reality simulation was emerging out of the University of Central Florida. You might remember it by its original name of Teach Live. And the innovative and really interesting part of mixed reality simulation is it took advantage of some very cutting edge at the time virtual reality, virtual simulation, but then also maintained the human aspect in crafting these simulations for really purposeful and meaningful practice. And you'll see what I mean by that in just a moment if you've never experienced it. Mixed reality simulation offers the opportunity for our learning beginning teachers to practice with that safety net and actually be able to make the mistakes in a safe space. They can have the moment where they just kind of panic in the lesson and they don't know what to do, and they can say, pause, I need help. Can someone help me figure out what I did wrong or where I go next? And then they can say, okay, great. I want to do it again, which is not the luxury we get when we actually are out in the field. What is really important about this is that we don't ever see or intend for this to replace field and clinical experiences, but it helps get an even better version of our candidate for those early field and clinical experiences because they've had this intermediate opportunity for purposeful practice in between. And what we see is especially that coaching component that can happen, and the opportunity to debrief and learn from their peers can really make an impact when using this as an instructional tool. So the use of simulated practice is not novel to education. As you can imagine, this is quite common in fields like the military, the medical profession. One that we like to point out quite a bit is, thankfully, our pilots practice in a simulated cockpit that you can see mirrors what they will then see when they're flying our plane. And they do this extensively before they ever take anyone up in the air, which we are quite thankful for. And we believe that education is also a very high stakes field. Our students with disabilities deserve the very best. And that includes with our pre-service teachers when they are actually out in the field learning. So how does mixed reality work? I'm not going to give away all of the secrets. You have to kind of play around with it and engage with it to see. And when we use this with our candidates, we don't tell them this part. We want them to suspend the disbelief and just engage as if they were teaching a fifth grade classroom or if they were engaging with a parent. And it can be a strange experience at first if candidates have never really used it before, but then once they do it a few times, they kind of let the nerves go, allow themselves to immerse, and then that's where you can see some of the magic start to happen. So you can see there is an actual live actor that is our sim specialist here, that helps kind of navigate the artificial intelligence that is all built, and the technology from when we first started doing this just continues to get better and better, especially as AI continues to get stronger and stronger. And what they see is that we can kind of personalize a simulation, personalize the environment to help guide what we want the candidates to practice. So the sim specialists, puppeteers are avatars, which is what the candidate and the participant actually sees in a variety of environments. Might be a classroom, it might be a conference room, it could be a doctor's office, a business room. And then depending on the scenario that we want the candidates to practice, that is what will really drive how the simulation will go. And then, of course, our learners get the benefit to practice with it. And so with this, as we started using mixed reality more and more, and originally, we started using it with explicit instruction to teach some early collaboration skills, communicating with co-teachers, paraprofessionals, parents, classroom management. And around this time, the first version of the high leverage practices were also coming out. And my colleagues and I thought how wonderful that we have wonderful colleagues in the field who have organized all of these evidence-based practices and effective skills that beginning special ed teachers need to have around 4 aspects of practice. That just really helps simplify pieces down. Simulations allow individuals to learn and practice in this environment and they get the decision making. So we said, okay, let's start using this specifically with high leverage practices. We were doing this with aspects of that, but now we can actually connect it to the high leverage practice to just simplify the learning pathway for our candidates so they know, okay, I am learning about intensifying intervention. I'm learning about explicit instruction. Now I can have a practice scenario specific to this HLP, and then I can take it and implement it in my field and clinical experience or in my classroom if they are an induction teacher. So I'm going to show you briefly a little bit about what this looks like. This is a simulated classroom of middle school students here. And so this is a great practice learning opportunity that came out of Paulo Lancaster and colleagues too, where they said, we're going to have our candidates practice just teaching someone how to pack a lunch. So teaching them the components of explicit instruction and to create an explicit instruction lesson plan, but on something that is neutral content. So just packing a lunch. And so I am going to show you a little bit about what this kind of looks like in practice.
In a container and add my utensils and a napkin. So I made this look like a plate or a napkin so that I can help remember that I need something to eat it with. I don't know if you've ever packed a lunch that needed a fork and forgotten the fork. It's not a good situation.
Oh, yeah, you ever try eating chicken parm with no fork?
That would be a mess. It'd be pouring out of my bag, no container, no fork to eat it. It would be a sad plate. I know, that'd be pretty messy. It'd be hard to teach with chicken parm all over my hands.
Oh, that's gross.
All right, so that was just a quick kind of glimpse at what those interactions can look like. So you can see my friend Ethan here. Earlier, I had kind of generated some ideas of what their favorite lunch was. He loved chicken parmesan, so I was using it as my example. And then each of the students had an opportunity to kind of engage in learning the process of, if we're going to break this down into a strategy of, I've got a mnemonic here to help you remember the 4 steps to pack a lunch. And then you can see we had then other participants who were learning who then were able to practice as well. Um, so each of the students, they have their own personality. You can set the behavior to be a little bit more challenging or a little bit lighter. If I was really boring in my lesson, they could have gotten on their cell phones, they could have gotten a little unruly, started talking to each other. And so you can really range it from anywhere for them just, sitting there and being like, this is so riveting. I love hearing about what you're going to pack for lunch and how you pack your lunch to a more realistic classroom. But what's nice is you can kind of control the range of that so that you are not always just, putting a new candidate who's not even really confident in how they're going to teach that biology lesson in a classroom where they're also having to, redirect behavior, set those expectations, create the welcoming environment, and they're just kind of their head is spinning. You can help isolate some of those different tools. Another example I want to briefly show you is we use this quite frequently and for the collaboration IEP and and we do an IEP meeting scenario, which is nice because it actually pulls from all of the four different domains. So you're collaborating with parents. We can look at assessment data and talk about progress monitoring data, and then talk about instructional and social emotional behavioral concerns too. So we typically, like to provide a rubric or some resources. We create the simulation and then we allow our teachers to practice. So I'm going to drop this in the middle here so you can see what the adult avatars look like.
He loves sports and video games. I mean, when the Braves won, he was so excited. And, he does, I think, struggle with reading, but it's something that he tries really hard at. And I notice he gets a little embarrassed at times when he gets called out. But I've been doing everything that I can at home. I really have. So I'm just here really for any guidance or help.
Absolutely. And, we've really seen just looking at the data we've been collecting over the last year, we did.
So that's just a quick example of kind of how the adult avatars look like, sound like, engage. And again, what's nice is that this technology is ever evolving. So even since when we recorded this video, the technology is even smoother with some of our avatars, which is really great. So in this one, I am the special education teacher. My colleague, Kate Zimmer, is the general education teacher. And then we have the parent, the administrator, and I want to say the school counselor is sitting here in this as a part of the IEP team in this scenario as well too. But so this has been a really powerful simulation we've seen because it helps us connect back to the high leverage practices where, there can be a focus on compliance and a fear of compliance and doing this part well, but having the scenario and the simulation can really help us connect back to how this integrates with high leverage practices. Because if you're doing those four things really well and you know how to do those things, you're going to be well equipped to lead and facilitate that IEP meeting. The other piece, and I'm going to show you really quick this website and where this is going to be provided in the resources as well. So we have also worked with the Cedar Center to help pull some of these pieces into just something that can be very easily formulated and taken and implemented in teacher preparation. So this is our practice-based learning opportunities. These are not all about mixed reality simulation, but several of them are. So this content neutral one is the pack a lunch one that I just showed you. You can see we have one for HLP 3, communicating with a parent. We have one for HLP 6, and then as well as 14, 5, and 18. And so all of these, if you were to click on it and explore, it helps break down kind of what it is, if there's any recommended pre-work. So sometimes we like to pull from others, you're teaching about these things. And so here's some pieces you might want to make sure they are familiar with first. And then how you might implement and how you might evaluate and reflect. And so that the link to that Cedar Center resource will be with the resources that we'll share here as well. So to sum it up, mixed reality simulation can be very helpful in providing purposeful practice for new teachers learning high leverage practices. The ability to really tailor the scenario to the needs of the teachers or to the topic of the course that you're working on is very beneficial. And then you can again structure it so that the feedback sessions are beneficial to all people, not just the ones in the simulator, but everyone watching the individual there too. The intensity level can be tailored as well to make it the appropriate level of challenge. So we see them being successful. We start out slow, we build intensity, and it helps build confidence as well. They can pause, ask for help, restart, or resume, and they learn from watching each other. So all in all, this has been a wonderful tool for us, and I hope you found this helpful, and I am happy to answer any questions. Please feel free to reach out and email. Thank you so much.